Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Call of Duty World War II single player and multiplayer on the GeForce GT 1030, 2GB for FPS monitoring. This time I won't be using cam since it's not currently working with this game. So Call of Duty World War II single player and multiplayer, I'll be doing 1080p, 900p and 720p. To skip one of those sections of the video, check the description below. So first I'll show you 1080p using the overclock GT 1030. On the rest of the resolutions, 900p and 720p, the overclock will be disabled. And other things that I did in this video: on all resolutions, I used a pre-T2X resolution, which is an option that allows you to lower the resolution, maintaining very similar visuals since it's using a post-process anti-aliasing solution, which is called Filmic SMAA T2X. So that tries to fill in the gaps of the lack of pixels. In my opinion, it works quite well. I cannot really tell much of a difference from native resolution to that. I'm using the 50% option. What that does is takes the horizontal axis of your resolution, just cuts it in half. So instead of 1920 by 1080, for example, you have 960 by 1080, which is a good reduction in pixels. That's why the better performance. So yeah, expect that across the whole video on 900p and 720p as well. Just cut the amount of pixels in the horizontal axis to half. Since my target here is 60 frames per second, this game by default is designed to run at 60 frames per second. Even on consoles, it does run at that target. I mean, I tried to play below 60 frames per second on this game, like below 50, better said. And at 30 to 40 frames per second, the game doesn't feel right. It's just too fast paced for that lower frame rate. On 1080p, for example, I had to turn off ambient occlusion and many of those things, also subsurface scattering, depth of field. I saw the game drop quite a bit to the low 40s, which was quite annoying when you're aiming down sights. It happened on single player and multiplayer, so that's something to keep in mind. I would recommend 900p in this case with reduced settings because it runs quite well, much closer to 60 frames per second. But if you don't want any drops below 60 frames per second, pretty much, use 720p with pre-T2X resolution at 50%. I'm pretty much a mix between medium and high settings. And that was working quite well. I was over 60 frames per second most of the time. But again, as I said in my previous GT 1030 videos, if in your country the GTX 1050 2GB is not that expensive compared to the 1030 new, I will get a 1050 2GB instead. It's a much better card. Or just check for GTX 750 Ti's on the used market. They might be almost the same price as a 1030 new. That's again a better performing card. Or if not, just get the GT 1030 new, and this video should help you out to see how it runs. So in the options menu, the things that by lowering them got me a good boost in performance, first of all, were shadows. The shadow map resolution was the biggest hit to the frame rate. You have normal, high and extra. They don't look that much different in my opinion. Normal still looks good enough. So if you use normal instead of extra, it's a huge performance uplift. I show you an example at the end of the video using a 1050 Ti. The difference in performance between normal, high and extra, you'll see that there's a big difference in performance. Then we got shadow depth. You have normal and high. I recommend using high. The game looks less flat while using this. A lot of shadows will be missing if you use the lower setting here. But it's also a hit to the frame rate, not as big as shadows, but it's still quite noticeable. Then depth of field, you have off, low, medium and high. I recommend turning this off if you don't care about depth of field, because when you aim your gun down sights, you get a hit to the frame rate. By using between low and high, I didn't see that big of a difference, so I recommend using low if you're getting performance hits while aiming down sights. Then on screen space ambient occlusion, you got many options. HBAO Plus is the biggest hit there, so if you use GTAO, it'll still look nice enough, but it will be a smaller hit to the frame rate compared to HBAO Plus. Then you got medium distance ambient occlusion, which is also a noticeable hit to the frame rate. With this enabled, you get more ambient occlusion on extra objects, so if you turn this off, some stuff won't have ambient occlusion onto it, which makes the game look flatter. And those were the main options that gave me the biggest impact in performance. If you want some extra performance other than that, just lower the options I didn't mention in groups. And the texture quality, if you have a 4GB of VRAM card, use high, don't use extra, it uses more VRAM. The VRAM usage gauge in this game is inaccurate, so keep that in mind. But yeah, this options menu is quite nice, a lot of options, you get the explanation on the right, plus a picture showing you the differences, so that's good to have. And you'll notice that on all my videos on this game, I'm using 16GB of RAM. That's because this game on multiplayer, single player and zombies it can use more than 8 gigabytes of RAM, so keep that in mind. If you have 8 gigabytes, you should still be fine, you should be able to play the game, but you might get some stutters here and there that are quite annoying. So yeah, take that in account if you're going to purchase this game. It uses a lot of RAM, even on single player. And while talking about single player, my testing methodology was going into single player into a very foliage dense area. So you'll see when I'm between many trees, plus god rays, plus enemies, plus all that kind of stuff, I'll get the lowest performance, but outside of those areas is fine. Then I'll test multiplayer. I won't be testing the same map on multiplayer since I was unable to get to the same map consistently, but overall they run quite similar. And on multiplayer you have your own graphic settings, so if you configure something for single player, on multiplayer you have to do it again. But usually multiplayer run a little better than single player. Single player in my end ran the worst. And then I didn't test zombies because it was the one that ran better than multiplayer and better than single player, at least on my end. So if you want to play zombies, you'll be fine. Just use the options I selected on the multiplayer option. And this game uses a lot of CPU. You'll see that the G4560 is pretty much at 100% all the time. On some videos I'll test the Ryzen 3 1200 and it wasn't that different. I mean, it used less CPU on the Ryzen, but the GPU usage was already over 90% the majority of the time. So we're over 60 frames per second, no problem. If you have an i5, a Ryzen 5, a Ryzen 7, an i7, something like that, you'll still be able to be over 60 frames per second, as long as your GPU is good enough. So yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Those dudes have their killing our tanks. Armor needs our support. We're gonna take the AA gun behind that tree line. There's the AA gun. Grenade out! Get up these routes to help our tanks out. Get on that flak gun and take out those Stukas. Aircraft in the air. Enemy bomb incoming. Get to cover. Enemy care package observed. Deny them their resupply. them back! Push him back! Get after them!
Come on, we're on the run! Keep pushing! There's the flak gun! It's getting close!
Those Snoop guys are killing our tanks! Armor needs our support! We're gonna take the AA gun behind that tree line!
There's the AA gun! Let's clean up these crowds and help our tanks out!
Get Pentium!
Enemy recon aircraft in the air.